The Assistant Chief Education Program, the Election Day Before Open, the first module of the election day. On the election day, before the polls open, from the time you arrive at the polling place until 6 a.m. opening time, staying on task is essential to a chief's success. There are some things a chief has to do, and many things a chief can delegate, and should. It is important that the chief only have oversight of the entire process and their required activities on the to-do list. This is when having startup assignments for your officers of election can save you a lot of time. The list of must-dos, or things the chief has to do themselves, is fairly short. Deliver election materials to the polling place. These are the materials you picked up the day before at Stagecoach Road. Since this includes the ballots, the poll pads, and the keys to the cage, this is important. The second must-do is to swear in the EOs and your assistants. Collect their signatures on the oath page in the election day binder. There are some other activities that are probably should-dos for the chief, but they could be delegated. First is to ensure the registrar's office is called to let them know you are in your polling place. They like to confirm that you are calling from a good number so they know how to reach you if they need to during the day. Contact any missing EOs, folks who didn't show up at the time you told them to. Welcome any authorized poll watchers who arrive. Ensure all the startup teams have the instructions they need. And monitor the scanner, poll pad, and ballot table setup processes to ensure they are problem-free. The scanner is arguably the most critical piece of hardware in the election. It is literally the thing that counts the votes. If you had to run an election without the scanner, you would spend a long time after the fact counting ballots. If you could not get your scanner working for any reason, you would get a replacement scanner, so this outcome is unlikely. Make sure you have an excellent team on this startup and breathe a sigh of relief when it is open and ready for voting. Another chief job is to welcome authorized poll watchers. A poll watcher can arrive at any time, and until the poll closes, leave at any time. In the chief's materials is a poll watcher kit. These are in the materials you picked up from Stagecoach Road. This includes instructions on how to process a poll watcher, rules of the road for poll watchers, and poll watcher badges. Poll watchers for a primary should have a letter from the candidate they represent saying they are an authorized representative, and the letter may be a copy. Poll watchers for a regular election should have a letter signed by the county or city chairman of their political party, or by the state or district chairman of the political party if the local chairman was unavailable, or by the independent candidate they represent. Poll watchers, when they arrive, should be instructed to bring any questions or concerns to the chief or assistant chief as appropriate. Generally, poll watchers will sign in on a sign-in sheet from the kit. They should be offered a copy of the rules of the road. They usually already have them. They should be shown where to sit, chairs behind the check-in officers being the favored positions, but not the only place they can be. Poll watchers are allowed to see any part of the voting process, but they may not interact with voters or hinder the process. Poll watchers should not be treated like an enemy, nor are they necessarily a friend. Ostensibly, they have the same goals you have, to conduct an election according to the law. Most poll watchers are decent folks who will not impede your polling place operations. Sometimes they can even be a help as another set of eyes and ears. At some point in the morning, you will decide that startup is complete, and you do that by checking with all of your startup teams to see that each startup task has been completed. Make sure the poll pads are open and ready for voter check-in. Make sure the scanner is open and ready to scan ballots. And as tempting as it might be to have an EO who's registered in your precinct go through the voting process to make sure everything works, if this is done before 6 a.m., you have broken the law because the polls do not open until then. If things have gone well, 15 to 30 minutes before the 6 a.m. deadline, everything is set up and everyone has a moment to take that last bathroom break before the day begins. If things have not gone well, then at 6 a.m. there will be an angry mob at the door and none of your systems will be working. In both cases, the polls shall open at 6 a.m., whether you are ready for the voters or not. Opening 5 minutes later is not a choice. Now, if you are just breaking out the paper poll books at 6 a.m., then the voters may have to wait a moment while you get ready to manually process them, but you will have the doors open. The morning of the election before the polls open, the chief has a few things they have to do and many things they probably should do. Having your teams prepared by education and knowing their assignments in advance is key to successful startup. A recurring theme here is that the chief should be watching everything and of necessity actually doing very little. Try hard not to get sucked into things that will take your focus away from the big picture when someone else can do those things.